Hello, my name is Rick Houston, and welcome to the Scene Vault Podcast, your source for all things NASCAR history. Presented by Las Vegas Motor Speedway, America's racing showplace.
And he says, how many other car owners you know got their own blimp? And I thought to myself, holy crap. You know what I mean? Either this guy's got a boatload of money or we're going to be broke in 6 months. So we turned him loose, and Paul simply hauled ass for 2 laps and won that race. And with Austin being the grandson, you know, and there's just a lot of things you got to weave your way through, and Gil Martin got kind of beat up a little bit. And I didn't really want the job, but I was kind of voluntold that's what you're doing. I took it out on my guys. You know, they were pissed at me because I made them stand in the rain for 2.5 hours fighting over 10 thousandths of rear toe. Silly, stupid, but me being bullheaded, I fought it.
The day NASCAR and all of us associated in any way with NASCAR forget its past, that's the day we don't have any future.
2006, you mentioned going back to Robert Yates.
Yeah.
How much of a difference did you see in the organization from then and the time you'd worked for him before? How much of a difference was there?
Yeah, they you know, engineering was starting to come in to the sport, you know, and they had a lot of in-house engineers. Don Letarte was building all the chassis now. Wesley Mills was doing all the bodies, and, you know, they were taking a lot of things on in hand, you know, and just doing what it took to win races. And engineering, like I said, was becoming a big part of it, and that's probably one of the biggest things that Robert did. He had really good pit crews, really good engines, really good aerodynamics, had good handling race cars, and put a lot of good things together. And, you know, that doesn't happen without sponsors, you know, and Robert had really good sponsors with Texaco, and then had UPS come in, but he had Quality Care before then. So Robert was very fortunate to have good people, good sponsors, and Robert didn't put much money in his pocket. He put it back in the race team.
So tell me about Bobby Ginn.
Yeah, that was crazy time for sure. Yeah. So Bobby Ginn, yeah, he came in as a car owner, and it was he had the mindset of he was going to turn the world upside down, and he started 3 Cup teams and an Xfinity team, and away we went to Daytona, and that was the race that Mark Martin almost won. That Harvick beat him, and I was Sterling Marlin's crew chief. We had 0 points going to Daytona, and we had to qualify on time, and that was the year that Toyota came in, and I think there was like 53 cars fighting for 57 cars, I think, fighting for 43 spots, and myself and Sterling and Bobby Ginn Racing, we were the only team to qualify for every race having 0 points, you know. So there was a lot of the Toyota teams that went home, but we were the only one. So that was pretty cool. But going back to the Daytona 500, Bobby Ginn was sitting on my pit box. He taps me on the shoulder during the race, and he goes, "See that up there?" And I didn't know what he's talking about, so I looked up, and there was a blimp flying overhead, and it said Ginn Resorts on the side of it, you know, how it lights up. And he says, how many other car owners you know got their own blimp? And I thought to myself, holy crap. You know what I mean? Either this guy's got a boatload of money or we're going to be broke in 6 months, you know? And sure enough, we were broke in 6 months. But that was a weird deal when it all went down. You know, we were racing, doing our thing, and Jay Fry had called us. He was the general manager. He had called all the crew chiefs the night before and said, hey, this is going down. We're going to, you know, eliminate some teams, and Bobby's backing down a little bit. And we're going to tell all the people tomorrow. So basically, had a shop full of people. I forget the exact number, but Jay got everyone together, and there was a sheriff standing at the door when you walked in that morning. And everyone was like, what the hell's the sheriff doing here, you know? So anyway, he had a meeting with all the people and said, hey, if we call your name, he said what was going on. You know, we're eliminating some people, you know, a race team's going away, Joe's going away, Sterling's going away, Joe Nemechek, that is. And he said, if we call your name, go back to work. If we don't call your name, go over here and you'll have your papers. And that's what the cop was doing there in case there was disgruntled employees. And sure enough, I think they released like 60 or 80 people, 100 people, whatever it was. I mean, it was a pretty big number. There was a lot of people, a lot of good friends that lost their deal, you know. And Bobby Ginn was there later that afternoon, and he had told Joe Nemechek, Sterling, myself and Peter Suspenzo. We were the four people. He said, I want to honor your contracts. He said, I want you guys to sue me. He said, get one lawyer, get the cheapest lawyer you can get, take me to court. And he said, I'll pay you out the term of your contract. I mean, so Bobby was good to us, the crew chiefs and the drivers. He paid us out the remaining time of our contract. Didn't have to, but he did, and he gave the employees severance, but it just simply, he was in a lot of land development and things like that, and things turned, and he couldn't afford racing no more, so he cut back. I think Mark Martin was the only driver at the time. Regan Smith, I think, was another one. So he cut back a little bit, but it was definitely this owner came in, and we've all seen it time and time again where a millionaire owner comes in and it's going to turn the world upside down and show Rick Hendrick and Joe Gibbs how to race, and typically they don't make it long. And Bobby was one of those guys, but Bobby was super to us, to me. I've got no complaints against Bobby. The way I look at it is Bobby came in and he gave a bunch of people jobs, right, for a year. And it didn't work out for some people, but at least he came in and gave people an opportunity. So I like Bobby, got along. I went to some of his resorts, stayed there. He was always good to me, but unfortunately they lost a lot of headcount that day. And it's just part of motorsports. He's not the only one. We've seen it with Gillette's coming in and others. I mean, it's just nature of the beast.
So you had Busch Series and Winston Cup championships and a Daytona 500 win on your resume. What do you remember about the 2011 Brickyard 400 with Paul?
It's pretty cool. We weren't the best car there. We were probably top 12 car. We weren't the best car. And sometimes when you, as a crew chief, you work on your car and you realize that you're not going to get it much better than what it is. And Indy's a hard place to pass. And so you start working on Plan B, right? And Plan B was fuel mileage. So Mike Wolf, my engineer that was sitting beside me, started working on, what are our options to do better. Nowadays, you got computer and AI that tells you all that, right? But back then, you got a computer and you're scratching fuel mileage and things like that. Well, there was a caution to come out. I think it was 46 to go in the race, and we thought that we could stretch it on fuel. And sure enough, it was Paul Menard, I think it was Regan Smith, and one other driver, I forget who it was, Jamie McMurray. We all took the shot of when the yellow came out, topping off with fuel, knowing we couldn't make it. We had to do some extreme savings. Race went back to green, and no one of the three people I mentioned, Regan, Paul, and Jamie, nobody wanted to lead, right? We were all changing because we knew if you were leading, you were burning more fuel and you weren't going to make it to the end. So they were constantly taking turns leading. And the leaders started pitting under green. Jeff Gordon, everyone's starting to pit under green, and they are running 5 seconds a lap faster than us because we're saving fuel. And sure enough, finally, Paul was leading that pack of 3, and the other 2 guys realized that they couldn't make it, so they really went to super conservative savings. And with 2 to go, just told Paul, hey, we're going to turn you loose. 24 is coming. If we don't, he's going to pass us, even if we do finish. If we don't finish, then we took a shot at it. So we turned him loose, and Paul simply hauled ass for 2 laps and won that race. And I'll never forget, I say that a lot because in all these years of motorsports, you'll never forget the damn good things that NASCAR presented you. But 27 car crosses the line, and somebody grabs me from behind and starts shaking my shoulders. I turn around, it's Paul Menard, right? So Paul Menard, which has got so much influence in motorsports, sponsors so many cars, so many teams, does a lot for NASCAR, IndyCar, everything he's involved in, he's super. And here's a guy that's been coming to Indy for all these years and never won at Indy. And we just pulled it off, And it come down to, yes, it was pit strategy, but it come down to myself, Mike Wolf, the engineer, the spotter, and Paul all managing fuel savings. Took a group effort, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's easier to win a race on speed than it is to win on fuel mileage because it's really hard to win on fuel mileage. You have to have everything go perfect. And sure enough, we won that race, and just Paul being so ecstatic behind me, jumping up and down. And it was just to get Paul his first win. And it just, you can't take it back. It's something that, Paul had always wanted to win in NASCAR, and you gave them that opportunity. A lot of guys on the team. Keep in mind, the 2017 was brand new that year, right? Didn't have a truck and trailer, didn't have a toolbox, didn't have a jack or jack stand when we went to RCR. So we start off everything from fresh, and to win a race 13 races in, holy shit, we just pulled off a miracle. You know what I mean? And a lot of the guys on the team were just never been to victory lane, and they were just all new. And to be the guy that led that charge was pretty rewarding to me. And for Richard Childress to win yet another Brickyard was really, really cool. And partied hard that night. I'll never. I keep saying, like I said, I'll never forget. But I had passed out in my backyard and at the pool, and my dog. I woke up because my dog was licking my hand at 4 a.m. The dog wanted to go in, and I had passed out in the chair, and the dog started licking my hand and woke me up. So.
Well, at least it wasn't a security guard.
I know it, right? So we had a large time that night, but to win at the Brickyard, for me as a crew chief, to win at Daytona, win at Brickyard. I mean, those are the crown jewels. Those are the races that you want to win, and I pinch myself all the time because I'm just, like I said, I'm a young dumb kid from Maine that jumped in a freaking toter home and drove up 95 with no place to go, and you win these crown jewels. It's like, damn, how lucky am I?
You left RCR and Austin Dillon 10 races into the 2017 season. Was that your decision, Richard's, or a mutual?
It was kind of mutual. It was coming,
Kind of mutual?
Yeah, and I can explain that because there was some frustrations, that is probably... That's probably my biggest letdown in my career is not winning with Austin Dillon in the 3-car. I didn't want the opportunity. I was doing R&D. I was on Paul's deal, then I left, and they put me in R&D, and I was getting a car ready to go to Richmond, and I was laying to go to a Goodyear tire test at Richmond. I was laying under the car working, and Mike Dillon come by and he kicked me in the feet and he said, "Hey, you're crew chief of the 3." Come honest, what do you mean? He said, "Yeah, the guys are in the conference room. They want to meet you. We told them that you're the crew chief." I was like, damn. Okay. So we met the guys and everything, but that's the letdown. I didn't really want to be the crew chief of the 3. It was a high-pressure deal, right? Even like the Menard deal was high pressure because the driver was bringing the money with Menards. That's high pressure, and with Austin being the grandson, and there's just a lot of things you got to weave your way through. And Gil Martin got kind of beat up a little bit, and I didn't really want the job, but I was kind of voluntold that's what you're doing. So I was let down that we didn't win. Had some good opportunities to win, and we didn't, but. Towards the end of it, Rick, the sport was definitely changing where I was always the type of crew chief that I touched the car. I worked on aero. I worked on a lot of parts and pieces and pushed limits and push templates and just like you're supposed to, right? And then you would always pick, like, I want to run this car this week, and this is what I want to do because you're the crew chief. You're the guy that wears the target. And things were changing in motorsports where the company was like, you're running chassis 28 at Darlington next week, and here's your engine, and here's your car. Well, I don't want to run car 28 because the 31 ran it at Richmond. And they were starting to take some of that responsibility of the hands-on approach away from the crew chiefs. And me being who I was and the mentality of what got me to where I was, of working hard, was getting taken away. So it got to the point where here's your car. It is what it is. This guy sets all the templates for you. You don't get to molest it. The engineers are dictating the setup of what you do. You worry about taking care of the driver and calling the race. And, oh, by the way, the race, you have to kind of follow the direction of the war room. The war room was where engineers sat and dictated race strategy through AI. And the school of hard knocks crew chief was taking a beating back then, and I was growing frustrated with it. It just, you could tell your time as there was other crew chiefs that were school of hard knocks crew chiefs that were getting released, and you could tell that the writing's on the wall and it's coming. A couple of weeks prior to me leaving or getting released from RCR, we were at Bristol, and it was raining out Sunday morning, and we had failed tech 7 times. I was pissed. You know, they had all these new gadgets and how to measure things. And by the way, those gadgets that NASCAR come up with is probably because some of the shit I did in Michigan, you know? Yeah. So I was creature of habit, right? So, and I wouldn't cave in. I was pissed. It was pouring out. I knew we weren't going to race, and I wasn't giving in. I was going to make NASCAR finally just say, all right, just go on, you know? And it never happened. Pushed around the building 7 times, and we finally passed. My guys were pissed, and I was just being bullheaded because of things were growing frustrated with the culture at RCR, the way it was changing of how a crew chief operates. And I took it out on my guys. You know, they were pissed at me because I made them stand in the rain for 2.5 hours fighting over 10 thousandths of rear toe. Silly, stupid, but me being bullheaded, I fought it, you know. Eric Warren was calling me on the phone, pissed off. Sammy Johns, the competition director, was calling me. They were pissed off, and everybody was mad. And finally made it through tech, and I called my wife the next morning. Monday, we had raced on Monday, and I called her and I said, I don't think this crew chief's gig's for me anymore. I think I've had enough. It was just too much. You know, I've over 1,100 races in NASCAR, 500 as a crew chief, and it was just to the point, Rick, where it's like, I've said it before, if you don't wake up happy and want to go to work, there's no sense doing it, right? So NASCAR's been good to me. Finally had enough. Race Bristol. Next week, went to Richmond, and the penalty was to do a drive-through. Can't qualify, and had to do a drive-through on the first lap, right? But the bad part is I wasn't at Richmond. I wasn't suspended by NASCAR, but Richard suspended me for 2 races, Richmond and Talladega.
Wow.
And that set me off. You know what I mean? Here I am trying to push the limits for performance, and they took it a different way, right? Again, I'll be guilty because I probably pushed it more than I should have, right? I should have just caved in. But I didn't, and I paid the price. Richard suspended me for 2 races. After the first week at Richmond, he let me go to Talladega. And then we went to Kansas, and we had run the race and finished 12th or something. And as soon as Austin crossed the start-finish line, he wrecked. Race was over, and he wrecked. And I was pissed. So anyway, that Tuesday, Eric called me and he said, Dylan called me and he said, hey, we need to meet. We met at Starbucks in Huntersville, and that was it.
Wow.
My time at RCR was done, and it was their decision, but it was the writing was on the wall. It was enough, you know. And that race at Kansas was my last race as a crew chief, and it was number 500 as a crew chief.
Was it really?
Yep, and I didn't know it. I've never been a crew chief in the Xfinity Series or Truck Series or ARCA, nothing. I always just happened to be a crew chief in the Cup Series, fortunately. And I didn't know it, but this kid, when it all went down a couple weeks later, this kid had sent me a note on Twitter, and he said, hey, follow me. I got some information for you. So I followed him, and he sent me a direct message, and he sent me my stats. And I didn't know. And today it's easy to look it all up, but he said, man, Kansas was your 500th race as a crew chief, and I'm like, I had no idea.
Wow.
But 1,127 races, and 500 as a crew chief, and I had no idea. But when I've told you that I give my life to NASCAR, that's stats right there. I mean, that's a lot of time sitting in hotels, a lot of time away from your family, and like I said, when I was growing up, Rick, I always wondered where my dad was, and I know my kids thought the same thing. I've got 2 kids who are now 24 and 26, Chase and Kylie, and I'll guarantee you that they resent NASCAR because of me being gone all the time. You know, when they were young, they would come stay in the motorhome and follow motorsports because that's what we did. And then when they got to be 15, 16, they were doing their own thing as kids in high school. So, you know, NASCAR is good, very lucrative. It's a drug. I mean, it's addictive as hell, and you just can never get enough. And it makes you to look for all the performance advantages because when somebody else wins, you're pissed off that you didn't win. And, you know, you work really, really hard to get to that point of winning. And when you win, you better enjoy it because you don't know when the next one's going to come. Won the Daytona 500 2003. Woke up the next morning, had a receipt laying on the counter in the room. Is $627.43 for pizza, and I don't remember eating pizza. Yeah. Talked about winning the Brickyard. We had a hell of a time that night. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Just you don't know when the next one's going to be, so you better enjoy it. And anybody in motorsports, man, just enjoy the win you just had because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Now, were you done with Cup at that point?
Yeah, so basically when that happened, I just said, man, I'm 49. I'm retiring. I don't need to do this crap no more, And I was never a guy that could sit behind a desk. I always had to be hands-on, helping, working on something, understanding what I have to work with. And I was never a guy to at the time to sit behind a desk. And I always wanted to see what was going on. And if you're sitting in your office, you can't get that vibe. So I was just different, So yeah, that was it. I was done, and I just took 3 or 4 months off in the middle of summer. Drove my wife Angie absolute crazy. She was used to me gone 12 hours a day. When you're a crew chief, you work 80 to 100 hours a week. It's your life. It's what you do. You don't get a day off. Your mind's always racing. You wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, turn over and write something down on a piece of paper that's on the nightstand. Your brain never stops, and it's so easy to get burned out. But the drug of winning and performance is so high that you push the limits and do stuff that you look back at it and say, man, that was stupid. But so I drove my wife crazy. I waxed every car, painted every wall, power washed every piece of concrete I could have, and I simply ran out of stuff to do and got bored, I wanted to go play golf during the week, but my buddies were working, so all your friends are working and you're sitting at home laying by the pool drinking beer, and it just got old, and it was man, maybe I should get back in, that was the question. So when that day come, NBC had asked me to come do some things. I was doing some races for MRN up in the booth with Jeff and Dave Moody and some others, calling some races and helping with them, some truck races, Xfinity races, did a couple Cup races in place of Rusty, and I was having fun with that. And then NBC called, and we started doing some things for them, NASCAR America shows, weekly shows every night at 5 o'clock. We're doing some of that, and just, I think after doing 3 or 4 months of that, I got bored with it. It's just the brain was needing to go, and it wasn't going. So it just time to do something different. And my buddy Andy Graves called. Everyone knows Andy from we worked together at Hendrick, and Andy's been around the sport forever. And he called me over to TRD, and we had a conversation, and said he was looking for someone to get in to be the manager of NHRA drag racing for Toyota. And I said, I don't know a damn thing about drag racing. And he goes, perfect. That's what we want. We want someone to come in with a fresh set of eyeballs and bring some of the NASCAR mentality to NHRA. And everyone thinks, well, why would you go work for an NHRA team? And I didn't know much about it, so I went to a couple races and checked it out. And, man, it's pretty cool, And my mind was, man, I can bring a lot of this NASCAR technology to this garage. The engineering that I've seen, the safety aspects that we talked about earlier, because NHRA is nothing wrong with what they do. They're just behind the times because they don't have the sponsorship dollars and the resources and the OEM support. So we came in at 2018. I went to work for TRD at the end of 2018. And my first race is at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And the Colettas was the main team for Toyota. And my first race there, Doug Coletta wins. I was like, shit, this is easy. Much like when I went to work for Tommy Houston. Second race, and we won. Hell, this is easy, So, but, man, I'll tell you, it was a huge undertaking because it's nothing like NASCAR. Nothing. I mean, there's so much chaos in 3.5 seconds, right? And basically the same mentality of what my dad told me in 1989 when I left. You got 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? Do twice the listening, half the talking. And sure enough, I got hooked up with the right people and started to understand everything about NHRA. And what I quickly realized, Rick, was that the crew chiefs, they worried about clutches and engines and blowers because they make 11,000 horsepower, and that's what moves the needle, right? So I came in with a different mindset of, well, man, I'm going to come in and work on safety. I'm going to work on tires. I'm going to work on chassis. I'm going to work on headers, the things that are important, but they got their eyes on the engines and clutches. So I just came in with a different mindset of, hey, what about this? Let's try this. And we started trying all these different things. And 2018 was a hell of a year. J.R. Todd wins the Funny Car Championship, and here I am again, some young kid from Maine, don't know shit, and here we'll win a NASCAR championship. Come to NHRA garage, win a NHRA championship in Funny Car, and it's like, damn, it just makes me feel proud that I can be a part of something and contribute. And when I went to the NHRA series, it kind of reminded me of NASCAR 2000, right? When you could work on your cars and be creative and use your ingenuity and come up with things, because the rules, they weren't like NASCAR was in 2017, right? So definitely you could come in and suggest stuff and move the needle, and that's what we did. We worked on aerodynamics, tires, headers, chassis, and just move the needle, and fortunately enough, we were able to win a championship. So we just got done finishing a brand new body for the Funny Car Series, a GR Supra. We just used engineering and built this badass race car, and this year in 2022 we won a championship with Ron Capps. So I've got 2 NHRA championships under my belt, and I pinch myself every day. Just pay attention to detail, and just watch what's going on around you. And use your people, and good things will come. And I can't say enough, Rick. I'm a young kid from Maine that believed in himself, and I have kids ask me all the time, what does it take to get into motorsports? If you don't believe in yourself, don't even try. I believed in myself, jumped in a truck, and come to North Carolina, $1,000 in a suitcase, took a chance on myself, and good things have happened. I'm very fortunate and proud of myself, and not that I pat myself on the back much, but if you just stop and think about some of the accomplishments, it's pretty cool. But working at TRD is great. I love my job. I wake up every day. I can't wait to get there, to be a part of all these bright minds and engineers, and get to, they come up to you and ask you questions, and just for different perspectives and just a different set of eyeballs on things. And I work in the truck series. My main accounts, I guess I should say, my title at TRD is Engineering Manager Vehicle Support. So my accounts are, I work for the ARCA Series, Truck Series, Drag Racing, and Cup Series Testing. So 2018, it was very good to me. My first year at TRD, won a truck championship with Atory Racing, and won the drag racing championship with Colettas. So I don't know. I pinch myself every day that I still get to come and work in NASCAR, work in NHRA, and get paid to do this. You know what I mean? It's not always about money. It's about what's in your heart, and what's in my heart is NASCAR. That's what I've done for 37 years, and if I had to go get a job, I don't know what else I would do. I'd probably move to Aruba and sell beads or something on the beach. I don't know what I would do, but like I said, the sport's been very good to me, and I've made a lot of friends along the way, and I think that's what really, when I went to work for TRD, I think that's what really re-energized me, because I went NHRA racing, and I got to go to all these tracks that I've never been to, met all these other people that I never knew, and it was just like a whole different breath of fresh air for just to learn and understand and start over. I felt like I was an 18-year-old kid starting all over, leaving Maine and just, boom, starting here. So still love going drag racing. It's just so much chaos in 3.5 seconds, and there's always something that goes wrong, and you're always troubleshooting. You're spending time with the drivers, looking at data, looking at videos, analyzing things, and just it's cool that I still get to go up every day and go to work.
Cool. Anything else you'd like to get across?
No, I just like I said, I've been in this sport for a long time, made a lot of friends, and pissed off some people, and
join the club.
Yeah. It's tough, when you're a crew chief, you're the guy that wears the target on your back, and there's things that you do that are favorable with some, and some it's not. But I've always pushed my people hard, because that's the way I grew up. I was pushed hard to succeed, and my story that we talked about today, I was pushed to succeed, and I pushed others sometimes too hard, but I always push people to reach their expectations or or what I thought their expectations should be. As a manager, you have to put them goals out there for those people. So I've always pushed them hard, but I think all my guys will tell you that I always rewarded them too. I always gave them Christmas bonuses. Always had them over to the motorhome for cookouts and drank some beers. Always had a good time. So we worked hard, play hard, and every Friday night, I think if you ask most of my people, what would happen on a Friday night after qualifying was over, they would say that I would look them in the eye and say, have you given an honest 8 hours today? And if they said yes, I gave them a beer out of the cooler. You know, we always had a beer every Friday night with my guys. So it was always in fun. But, you know, the sport's very demanding. It's hard on you. It's hard on your body. Living in a hotel, traveling up and down the road, but it's tough on your family. And I tried to preach that to my guys. It's like, you know, just don't be working to be here. Get your job done. Get here at 7. Work hard. Work smart. Go home. Spend time with your family. I couldn't always do that. Back in the day when we were young, you were working 12, 14 hours a week because that's what it took to get to the racetrack. I mean, you were hanging bodies, you were putting engines in, you're doing paint and body work, dismounting tires. That's what it took. And now in today's world, there's companies that haul your tires and dismount tires, your pit boxes, and, man, people put engines in. You don't have to put in. I mean, it's just a whole different sport now. And my message to the people is don't sell your family short, you know, because at the end of the day, if you have a bad day, good day, you get fired, you're going to go home to your family, and they're the ones that's going to give you the hug and support you. So I've preached it to many times to people, take care of your family because they're the ones that mean the most.